When a man begins to miss you, it doesn't start with a grand gesture. It doesn't begin with a text message, a call, or a confession. It begins in silence. It begins in that space where his thoughts start to wander, when everything around him goes quiet. You won't see it, and he won't say it. But something subtle starts to shift inside of him. A restlessness he can't name, a pull he can't explain. He starts feeling that you're not there, and for the first time, that absence feels heavier than he expected. See, men often think distance means freedom. They assume walking away or going silent will give them peace. But peace doesn't come when you leave something real behind. It comes when you face it. And when he starts to miss you, that's the first sign that he's beginning to face what he tried to avoid, the emotional echo of your presence. He begins noticing that things don't feel the same anymore. His routine is unchanged, but his rhythm isn't. There's something off, like a song missing its melody. He wakes up and checks his phone without even realizing why. He scrolls through old photos not to linger, but because he's drawn there. He catches himself remembering your tone, your words, your energy, the way you made him feel at peace without him having to say much. Men don't miss the conversation first, they miss the comfort. They miss the energy. They miss how your presence grounded them when their own mind was chaotic. That's the quiet shift that happens before a man admits anything to himself. He won't tell anyone. He won't talk to his friends about it. He'll just feel it in moments that come out of nowhere. Maybe he's driving and a song plays that used to mean nothing, but now it suddenly does. Maybe he's eating alone and realizes the silence used to feel fine, but now it feels empty. Maybe he's laughing with friends, but still feels a quiet tug pulling his thoughts somewhere else. That's the shift. That's how missing someone actually begins. It's not dramatic, it's hauntingly subtle. When he starts to miss you, he begins to notice what's missing. And it's not just your laughter or your words, it's the feeling of being seen. It's the calm he had when you were around. It's the ease of knowing someone understood him without him having to perform. He starts realizing that the peace he thought he'd find without you doesn't actually exist. That the silence he once needed has turned into the very thing he's running from. That's why, when a man secretly misses you, his energy changes first. You might not be talking, but you can feel it. You can feel it in the way he watches your stories again, the way his texts get slower but not colder, the way his silence starts to feel different. Before he reaches out, before he says anything, there's that invisible connection, like a radio signal between two people who once shared the same frequency. You can sense his pull. He can sense your absence. It's almost ironic. Men pride themselves on being in control, on staying composed, on not showing weakness. But missing someone doesn't ask for permission. It just slips through. It sneaks into the quiet hours when he's not distracted, when there's no noise to drown it out. That's when he starts to feel it, not as emotion at first, but as discomfort. He can't focus the same way. He's quicker to anger or quieter than usual. His world feels slightly unbalanced. That's not coincidence. That's emotional withdrawal. That's his energy trying to adjust to the void you left behind. He might not even realize what's happening. He'll tell himself he's fine, that he's just tired, that work is stressful, that he's just bored. But deep down, something deeper knows the truth. It's not exhaustion, it's longing. It's not stress, it's the echo of something meaningful that he pushed away before he understood what it was worth. This stage is quiet, invisible, but it's powerful, because it's the beginning of awareness. It's when a man starts to understand that missing someone isn't about needing them. It's about recognizing the value of what he once had. It's about realizing that peace doesn't come from leaving, it comes from connection. And even though he won't admit it, that realization begins to shape every small thing he does. His habits shift, his tone changes. His thoughts slow down, his energy softens. He's no longer fully present where he is because part of him has drifted back to you. That's why you'll notice the smallest signs before he ever reaches out. He lingers on your profile. He replies to old comments. He watches from a distance, not because he's moved on, but because he's conflicted. His pride wants to stay away, but his heart is starting to remember. And that tension between pride and longing creates a quiet storm inside him. That's the first sign he misses you. Not the message, not the call, but the change in energy that speaks louder than anything he could ever say. It's the way he carries your memory without realizing it, the way your presence still colors his thoughts even when he's trying to forget. And before anything else happens, that quiet shift, that invisible emotional current, is what tells the truth long before his words ever do. When a man secretly misses you, it doesn't start with him saying, "I miss you." It starts with his routine bending, almost imperceptibly, toward your memory. He doesn't plan it, he doesn't even notice it. But slowly, the things he once did without thinking start to shift. His day begins to include pieces of you again, not because he's trying to hold on, but because his heart keeps reaching out for familiarity. He might start visiting the coffee shop you both used to go to, telling himself it's just coincidence. But deep down, he's not going there for the coffee. He's going there for a feeling, the one he had when he sat across from you, the one that made him feel grounded, the one that made him feel seen. That's how missing someone works. It doesn't start with conscious effort. It starts with unconscious repetition. The pull of habit that memory refuses to let go of. You'll notice it if you pay attention. He starts posting songs with lyrics that sound like something you once said. He uploads a photo with a caption that feels strangely familiar. He wears the same cologne you once complimented. It's not strategy, it's muscle memory. When someone has mattered to you on a deep level, your body remembers even when your mind pretends not to. And for men, who often avoid emotional vulnerability, this unconscious drift is the first real confession they'll never make out loud. He'll tell himself he's just busy, that he's just living life. But something in his energy starts to shift toward you again. He'll stay up later scrolling through photos, replaying moments that used to feel ordinary but now feel precious. He'll start to think about what you'd say if you saw where he is now. He'll catch himself imagining how you'd react, what you'd laugh at, what you'd disapprove of. He won't admit it, but you've become a quiet presence in his everyday life again, not physically, but mentally. That's the thing about missing someone deeply. It turns ordinary routines into emotional triggers. The drive to work, the gym playlist, even the smell of rain, all become reminders. He starts to feel like you're there even when you're not. And it's confusing for him because men are conditioned to compartmentalize, to move on logically, to detach. But emotions don't care about logic. The heart remembers what the mind tries to erase. And in that remembering, his routine starts changing. He lingers longer in places where he might accidentally see you. He texts mutual friends just to check in, secretly hoping your name comes up. He might even reach out with something simple, "Hey, how have you been?" pretending it's casual, but his timing says otherwise. It's always at night, always when things get quiet, always when the distractions fade and his thoughts get louder. What's happening is simple but powerful. He's trying to reconnect with the feeling of you without facing the vulnerability of admitting it. So he dips his toes into nostalgia, revisits memories, scrolls through moments that remind him who he was when he was with you. Because when a man truly misses you, he's not just missing you, he's missing himself when he was with you. The version of him that laughed more, that cared more, that felt more alive. You might think he's just reminiscing, but it's deeper than that. It's an emotional reconnection disguised as reflection. Every small action, from listening to an old playlist to showing up in familiar spaces, is his way of stepping back into a reality that felt safe. Men crave stability, but emotional stability doesn't come from control. It comes from connection. And when that connection is gone, the mind searches for it in routines, hoping to recreate what's missing. He'll even start using phrases you used to say without realizing it. He'll quote something that sounds eerily like your words. That's not imitation. That's imprint. When you've impacted someone deeply, your influence lingers long after you've left. You become part of their emotional vocabulary. And when he starts missing you, that vocabulary resurfaces. He's trying to speak your language again, not out of manipulation, but out of memory. You might think, if he misses me that much, why doesn't he just come back? But that's the paradox of pride and longing. He feels the pull, but his ego builds a wall. He doesn't want to seem weak, so he tries to manage the missing through small habits, through subtle acts, through quiet gestures no one else notices. Yet those little changes reveal everything. The places he goes, the people he talks to, the things he posts, they all start orbiting around you again. It's not a coincidence that he shows up online right after you do. It's not random that he texts you out of nowhere. Those are emotional reflexes. When he feels the distance, he tries to shorten it in ways that don't expose him completely. But the truth is, missing someone always shows in tone, in timing, in the little patterns that betray his pretense of moving on. That's why his routine starts to bend, because your absence created a space that no distraction can fill. He thought he could replace it with work, with friends, with noise, but none of it carries your energy, and eventually, his day starts gravitating toward the only thing that feels real again, your memory. That's when he starts revisiting conversations in his mind, replaying what he said and what he didn't, what he should have done differently, what he took for granted. He begins realizing that missing someone isn't about what they did for you. It's about who you became because of them. And when that's gone, life feels slightly hollow. That's why his habits change. Because deep down, he's not looking for newness. He's looking for meaning. The kind he once had and didn't realize until it was already gone. And that's the quiet power of being missed. It doesn't always bring someone back to your door, but it brings their thoughts back to your presence again and again until even the smallest parts of their routine start to whisper your name. His emotions start to betray his logic. When a man secretly misses you, there comes a point where his emotions begin to rebel against his logic. He tries to stay in control, to keep things rational, to remind himself that he made the right choice or that moving on was for the best. But emotions are not employees that obey orders. They don't care about reason, pride or timing. They just show up unannounced in ways that even he can't predict or explain. And that's where it starts to get real, because no matter how composed he appears on the surface, something inside him starts to leak through. He might act fine in front of everyone else. He might laugh, go out, post pictures, live his life like nothing's missing. But when the lights go out and the noise dies down, that emotional control starts to slip. He begins to feel this strange ache, not quite sadness, not quite regret, just an emptiness that doesn't go away. He'll try to distract himself, but every distraction feels dull now. Every conversation feels slightly forced. Every new connection feels like a shadow of something that used to feel real. That's what missing someone does. It starts to blur the line between emotion and logic. He starts asking himself questions he doesn't want the answers to. Why do I keep thinking about her? Why can't I move on? Why does she still have this hold over me? Those questions are not weakness, they're awareness creeping in. He's beginning to understand that emotion doesn't vanish with distance. It lingers, it builds, it waits. He'll catch himself getting irritated over small things, snapping at people, feeling restless, losing focus. That's emotional overflow. When a man suppresses what he feels, it doesn't disappear, it redirects. It shows up as frustration, overthinking, silence, or withdrawal. His friends might notice he's quieter. He might start working longer hours or sleeping less. But what's really happening is emotional conflict. His heart and his mind are no longer in sync. His logic says, let go. But his emotions whisper, go back. That's why sometimes he'll look at your profile and not message you. Not because he doesn't want to, because he's fighting himself. He's caught between pride and vulnerability. Between missing you and not wanting to admit he does. That's the emotional tug of war every man faces when he starts to feel your absence in his soul. He doesn't know how to process it because for so long, he believed that control meant strength. But what he's realizing now is that missing someone can't be managed. It can only be felt. And that feeling starts showing in unexpected ways. He might start talking about you in passing, not directly, but through little stories. We used to go there. She loved this movie. That reminds me of something she said. He might not even realize he's doing it. That's his subconscious talking for him. His emotions are sneaking into conversations that his logic tried to lock away. Because when someone leaves a deep mark on your heart, their presence doesn't disappear. It echoes through your thoughts, your words, your tone. Even his body language changes. When your name comes up, he tenses slightly. When someone mentions something that reminds him of you, his eyes shift for a split second. That micro expression that says everything he won't. That's not indifference. That's remembrance. It's the part of him that still feels connected, even when his mind is trying to move forward. And then there are moments of vulnerability, rare, quiet, and unplanned. Maybe he sends you a late night message, something small, something simple like, hey, I was just thinking about you. It might not seem like much, but that's not an easy message for a man to send. That's his guard cracking, his emotions spilling through the cracks he's tried to seal shut. Because the truth is, the more he tries to ignore what he feels, the louder it gets. He might even start testing the waters, commenting on something you post, reacting to your story, asking mutual friends how you're doing. It's not always about wanting to get back together. Sometimes it's just about needing to know you're still there. Missing someone creates uncertainty, and for men, uncertainty is uncomfortable. So they look for small signals, reassurance that they haven't completely lost their place in your world. But here's what most people don't realize. When a man starts missing you, it's not just about love. It's about reflection. He begins replaying the relationship, but not the arguments or mistakes. The moments of peace, the parts that felt real, the things you brought into his life that no one else did. And that realization that not everyone gives the same energy, the same depth, the same calm. That's what breaks his logic down. He starts realizing that you weren't replaceable, that you weren't just another chapter, that your presence brought something intangible, something that can't be replicated by a rebound, a distraction, or a night out. And that realization doesn't hit him all at once. It builds slowly in waves. Sometimes he'll feel fine, and then out of nowhere, a memory will hit him so hard he goes silent. That's his emotions taking over again. That's the heart reminding the mind of what it's been trying to forget. This is the stage where men begin to feel deeply, but speak carefully. They don't want to admit they miss you because that means admitting they care. But their tone changes, their guard softens, their responses become slower, more thoughtful. They're not thinking about what to say, they're thinking about how they feel. And that shift in energy, that's emotion overpowering logic. It's the moment where he stops pretending he doesn't care and starts quietly realizing that he does. It's where he starts understanding that no amount of logic can protect him from what he feels. Because emotions have a way of reminding us, through silence, through tension, through longing, that some connections don't fade, even when everything else does. He starts comparing everyone to you. When a man secretly misses you, something changes deep within him, something he won't admit. even to himself. It's the moment when every new person he meets, every conversation he has, every spark he tries to chase ends up circling back to one thing: you. He doesn't set out to compare. It just happens. Because when someone has touched your soul in a way that left a mark, no one else fits quite the same. The connection he tries to recreate with others never carries the same rhythm, the same energy, the same emotional pulse that you once brought into his world. At first, he'll tell himself he's moved on. He'll go on dates, he'll talk to other women, he'll laugh, he'll play it cool. But deep down, something feels off. It's like trying to listen to a song where the melody is almost right, but not quite. He's there, physically present, but emotionally detached. Because when he looks across the table, no matter who's sitting there, he's subconsciously measuring them against the standard you set, the way you spoke, the way you listened, the way you understood him without him having to explain every thought. He won't admit it, but every little thing becomes a quiet comparison. The way someone laughs, the way someone texts, the way someone reacts to something small, it all triggers a memory. You see, when you've been emotionally connected to someone deeply, they don't just occupy your past, they shape your sense of what real feels like. And once you've felt that, it becomes the reference point. That's why nothing feels the same afterward. It's not that others are wrong, they're just not you. He'll start noticing it more when the initial excitement of new connections fades. When the small talk gets repetitive, when the chemistry feels forced, when the energy doesn't flow effortlessly. That's when his mind drifts back to you, to how natural it felt, how simple it was to be yourself, how time flew when you talked, how you didn't have to fill every silence with words because the silence between you felt safe. That's the kind of connection you don't just forget, it imprints itself. And when a man misses that kind of energy, he begins to realize that you weren't just someone he liked, you were someone who made him feel understood. That's the hardest thing for him to find again, because attraction is easy, but emotional resonance is rare. He might find people who look good, people who say the right things, people who seem perfect on paper. But deep down, he knows connection isn't about perfection. It's about peace. It's about presence. And the peace you brought into his life doesn't show up twice. That's why, even when he tries to move on, he ends up stuck in an emotional loop. He wants something new, but his heart keeps comparing it to what already felt real. He might start noticing small things that remind him of you. A scent, a song, a phrase, and he'll smile for a second before the smile fades. Because that memory isn't comforting anymore. It's haunting. It reminds him of something he can't replace. It's like chasing a reflection that keeps disappearing. He'll tell himself that he's fine, that he's open to new experiences, but deep down, he's measuring everyone through the lens of someone who already set the bar. Even his conversations will change. He'll bring your name up in subtle ways. Maybe he'll say, "I used to know someone who said that," or "I had a friend who loved that movie." It sounds casual, but it's not. That's him revisiting the feeling of you through conversation, because it's safer than admitting that he still feels connected. He's testing the waters of memory without diving too deep. But even in doing that, he reveals the truth. You're still present in his emotional landscape. And what makes this stage so powerful is that it's not about nostalgia anymore. It's about realization. He starts understanding that what he had wasn't just love, it was alignment. And when you've experienced that kind of alignment, nothing else feels authentic until it matches that depth. He'll start noticing when others can't hold space for his silence the way you did. When they don't challenge him the way you used to. When they don't encourage him to be better, the way you did without even trying. That's when the weight of your absence starts to sink in fully. He'll scroll through messages you once sent, not to read the words, but to feel the energy behind them. Because he's realizing that it wasn't just the words that mattered. It was the warmth, the tone, the emotional intimacy. The way you said simple things that somehow made him feel safe. That's what he's missing now. The emotional depth, the authenticity, the peace. And here's what's ironic. Even when he meets someone new who seems great, he'll start to pick up on what's missing faster than before. It's not that they're doing anything wrong. It's just that he's felt what right feels like, and now his soul recognizes the difference. That's what happens when someone touches your life deeply. You can't go back to shallow connections. You can't pretend that surface level affection feels fulfilling anymore. He might even get frustrated with himself. Wonder why he's still thinking about you. Why, after all this time, your name still echoes in his mind when he least expects it. But that's the power of emotional impact. You can't rationalize it away. You can't replace it with distraction. It stays because it was real. And when something real leaves, it doesn't just vanish, it lingers in the heart's memory, showing up in the spaces between what's missing and what's left. That's why, when he misses you, every new connection becomes a quiet mirror reflecting back what he lost. And even when he tries to ignore it, his heart keeps whispering what his mind doesn't want to hear. That no matter how far he goes or how many faces he meets, there's still one that comes to mind when everything else fades to silence. A man secretly misses you. There comes a moment when his silence starts to feel too heavy to carry. That's when his guard, the emotional armor he's been hiding behind, begins to crack. Not all at once, not dramatically, but slowly through subtle actions that reveal more than his words ever could. See, men are taught to appear composed, unbothered, in control. But when he starts missing you on a deeper level, his actions begin to betray that illusion. His behavior shifts in quiet, revealing ways. Because missing someone isn't just about longing, it's about losing control over how much they still affect you. He might start reaching out under innocent excuses. Maybe he texts you about something small. Hey, do you still have that book? Or, what was the name of that restaurant we went to? On the surface, it sounds casual. But underneath, there's emotion. He's not really looking for an answer, he's looking for connection. He's testing if that door is still open. Because when a man misses you but doesn't know how to say it, he'll find ways to stand close enough to your world without stepping all the way in. He'll do things that don't make sense to him either. He'll like your old photo out of nowhere. He'll react to a story you posted days ago. He'll pop up in places he used to avoid because you might be there. And if he sees you, his whole body language will shift. That sudden alertness, that spark that flashes across his face before he tries to play it off. That's his guard slipping. That's emotion showing up before his pride has time to stop it. He might start asking mutual friends about you, how you're doing, what you've been up to, whether you're seeing anyone. He won't say it directly, but there's always that hidden motive behind the question, does she ever think about me? Because even though he might not say he misses you, what he really wants to know is if you miss him too. Men often need validation before they express emotion. They need to feel it's safe. So when he starts making those small moves, it's his way of reaching out through the cracks in his guard, hoping you'll meet him halfway. You'll notice it in his tone too. The way he talks when you finally interact again. There's hesitation in his words, softness in his tone. He'll act casual, but his energy will give him away. Maybe he says things like, I was just thinking about something funny you said once, or I saw something today that reminded me of you. Those aren't coincidences, they're confessions disguised as conversation. He's not just reminiscing, he's trying to reestablish that emotional rhythm that once felt effortless between you. And the truth is, the more he misses you, the more his ego begins to lose its grip. He starts caring less about looking strong and more about feeling something real again. That's why you'll see moments of vulnerability peek through. A longer message than usual, a question that feels too personal, a pause in his voice when he says your name. That's not weakness. That's honesty trying to break through pride. Because when a man misses you in silence for too long, the silence eventually becomes unbearable. He might start showing up for you in small ways, sending a song he knows you love, offering to help with something, remembering dates or details he used to forget. Every gesture, no matter how subtle, carries meaning, because men communicate emotion through action. And when words fail him, actions become the language his heart uses to speak. It's not about grand gestures, it's about consistency. It's about those quiet signals that say, I still care, even if I can't say it out loud. But here's where it becomes deeply human. He's afraid. Afraid that too much vulnerability will make him seem weak. Afraid that if he opens up, he might be rejected. So he stays in this middle space, not too close, not too far. He flirts with connection but retreats when it feels too real. He might disappear for a few days after a moment of openness because the emotion scared him. But that's part of the process. Missing someone doesn't just soften a man, it confuses him. It exposes the parts he's tried to keep buried. And as that guard cracks, something shifts in his eyes. When he looks at you, it's no longer the detached, confident gaze he once had. There's depth now. There's reflection. Because missing someone changes the way you see them. It replaces assumptions with appreciation. He starts to realize the weight of everything he took for granted. Your patience, your kindness, your presence. The things he overlooked when he thought you'd always be there. He might even apologize in subtle ways, not always with the words, I'm sorry, but with his behavior, by showing up differently, by listening more, by being more gentle, more attentive. Because when a man truly begins to miss you, his pride starts losing the battle against his heart. And the things he used to defend, the distance, the silence, the control, stop giving him comfort. They start feeling like barriers keeping him from peace. And peace is what he's really after. Not the surface level calm of pretending he's okay, but the deep grounding calm that only comes from emotional closure or reconnection. That's why his actions change. Because deep down, he's tired of pretending he doesn't care. He's tired of acting like you don't cross his mind when you clearly do. That exhaustion starts to break down his walls piece by piece until the truth begins to leak through in his timing, in his gestures, in his voice. This is the point where the distance starts to dissolve. Not always physically, but emotionally. You'll sense it in the way he interacts with you, even if it's through small exchanges. His words start to carry weight again. His timing feels intentional. His presence, though hesitant, begins to carry warmth. That's what it looks like when his guard starts to fall, when missing you stops being something he hides and starts becoming something he unconsciously reveals through every quiet, meaningful action. There comes a moment, usually much later than he expected, when the full weight of missing you finally hits him. It's not in a moment of loneliness, not when he's scrolling through photos or replaying your conversations in his mind. It's deeper than that. It's when he realizes that your absence has changed something fundamental in his life. That you weren't just someone who passed through it. You were part of the foundation that made it feel steady. And now without you, everything feels slightly tilted, slightly off, slightly less meaningful. That's when it finally sinks in. What he lost wasn't just a person. It was peace, it was connection. It was something real. At first, he might have thought the silence would help him move on. He probably told himself that time would dull the memories, that distance would make it easier. But instead, time made it harder, because what time does best is reveal truth. And the truth he begins to see is that no amount of distraction can replace what was real. No new face, no new experience, no temporary high can silence the echo of what you brought into his world. He starts to feel it in small, piercing ways, like when he hears your favorite song and suddenly, he's not just remembering, he's reliving. The moments, the laughter, the comfort, all of it plays back in vivid color, reminding him that what you shared wasn't ordinary. He'll try to brush it off at first. He'll tell himself it's nostalgia, that it's just the mind romanticizing the past. But deep down, he knows better. Nostalgia doesn't ache you like that. It doesn't follow you into your quiet moments. It doesn't make you question your decisions. It doesn't sit heavy on your chest when you realize you may never experience that same connection again. That's not nostalgia, that's realization. That's the moment his heart starts catching up to what his mind has been trying to ignore. He'll notice how his world feels different now, not empty, but muted. The things that once brought him joy don't hit the same. The laughter with friends doesn't fill him the way it used to. The nights that once felt alive now end with quiet reflection, because what he's missing isn't just you. It's the version of himself that existed when he was with you. The man who felt grounded, calm, understood. The man who didn't have to perform to be accepted. The man who felt like he belonged somewhere. And that's the hardest realization of all, that your presence didn't just add to his life. It balanced it. It made it make sense. You were the stillness that steadied his chaos, the softness that made his strength meaningful. And now, as he sits in that silence he once craved, he realizes it's not peace anymore. It's loneliness disguised as independence. It's emptiness pretending to be freedom. He starts to see that what he walked away from wasn't control. It was connection. He'll remember the way you used to listen, the way you'd sense when something was off without him having to say it, the way you'd pull him back to center just by being near. And suddenly, all the things he once took for granted begin to haunt him. The way you cared too much, the way you tried too hard, the way you stayed present even when he pushed you away. He starts realizing that those weren't weaknesses. They were the purest forms of love. And that realization cuts deep. Because when a man finally sees the depth of what he lost, it's never at the right time. It's always when it's too late to fix it easily. He might try to reach out, but the words will feel heavier now. How have you been? Won't feel like enough. Because what he really wants to say is, I didn't realize what I had until it was gone. But he's afraid that window has closed. That too much has changed. So instead, he keeps his message short, hoping it carries the weight of everything he can't say. That's what missing someone at the soul level looks like. When you've run out of excuses and are left only with truth. And that truth is simple. He thought you'd always be there. He thought you'd always pick up, always care, always forgive. But now he's staring at the distance and realizing that love without appreciation fades faster than pride can rebuild it. He begins to see how small moments became the memories that now won't leave him alone. The sound of your laugh, the way you said his name, the little things that once felt ordinary, but now feel sacred. Because when someone's gone, it's the smallest things that echo the loudest. This is the phase where he starts to look back and question his choices. He starts connecting dots, the moments where he was distant, the words he didn't say, the chances he didn't take. He starts realizing that love isn't lost in big explosions. It fades in quiet neglect, in taking someone for granted, in assuming they'll always be there. And now that you're not, he feels that weight in every quiet moment. He feels it when he wakes up and doesn't check his phone because he knows your name won't be there. He feels it when something good happens and his first instinct is to tell you. Before remembering, he can't. And as that realization deepens, regret begins to surface. Not the kind of regret that's loud and dramatic, the quiet kind that lingers. The kind that sits in the background of every day, reminding him of what could have been if he'd valued what he had. It's not that he didn't care back then. It's that he didn't understand how rare it was. He didn't know that the connection he had with you wasn't something easily found again. He thought love was about excitement. Now he understands it was about peace. He thought distance would bring clarity. Now he realizes distance only magnifies truth, so he starts to carry that truth with him. In his silence, in his reflection, in the way he looks at love now. Because when a man truly misses someone he once took for granted, it changes him. It humbles him. It teaches him that real connection doesn't come around often, and when it does, you don't just walk away from it expecting it to wait for you. He begins to understand that what he lost wasn't just a relationship, it was a mirror of who he could have been if he'd chosen vulnerability over pride, depth over distraction, love over fear. The truth about when a man secretly misses you, when a man secretly misses you, it's not always loud, it's not always visible. It's not even something he'll admit to himself at first. It begins in quiet moments, in the pauses between his distractions, in the silence after the noise fades. It happens when he starts to realize that what he lost wasn't just someone to talk to, but someone who understood him in ways no one else could. Missing someone isn't about absence, it's about awareness. Awareness of what mattered, awareness of what was real, awareness of how different life feels without that emotional connection holding everything together. He starts by trying to suppress it, convincing himself he's fine, that moving on is progress. But slowly, he begins to notice the difference between being busy and being fulfilled. He notices how every conversation feels a little shallower, how every new connection lacks that spark of authenticity that used to come effortlessly with you. And that's when it hits him. Missing you isn't a moment, it's a realization. A realization that some people leave a mark that time can't fade or replace. But here's the part that most people overlook. When he starts to miss you, it's not just because he wants you back. It's because he starts to see himself through the lens of what he lost. You were the mirror that reflected his growth, his softness, his potential. You reminded him of the kind of man he could be when love wasn't about control, but about presence. When affection wasn't about grand gestures, but about consistency. When connection wasn't about words, but about energy. He begins to understand that what made you unforgettable wasn't perfection, it was peace. The way you made his world feel calm without saying much. The way your presence made even silence feel safe. And when that's gone, no amount of noise can fill it. Because real connection is rare. And once a man experiences it, everything else feels temporary. So when a man secretly misses you, he doesn't just miss your voice, your touch, or your laughter. He misses the way he felt when he was with you, grounded, seen, and understood. That's why he finds it hard to move on, even when he pretends he already has. Because deep down, he knows that love like that doesn't come around twice in the same lifetime. And for you, the woman who gave without demanding, who loved without losing herself, who chose peace over chaos, know this when he finally feels that absence, it's not your loss, it's his lesson. His silence will teach him what your presence once did, that love isn't found in chasing new faces or filling empty spaces. It's found in valuing what's real before it's gone. Because the truth is, when a man secretly misses you, he's not just missing a person, he's missing home. The kind of home that can't be rebuilt once it's left behind.